Hi, this is Enoch Sears,
Hi, this is Eric Fabro.
and this is the Architect Marketing Show. I want to welcome everyone back today to episode 3 of the Architect Marketing Show. I want to recap quickly what we've been doing up until this point. So the first show, we introduced the show, we introduced the site architectsmarketing.com. We talked about what Eric and I are doing here, why we're doing this show, and the things that we feel passionately about, and inviting you to be a part of it. In the second show, we had the opportunity to have 2 architects on, Eric, who showed us the strategies that they've implemented in their businesses to be able to get more better work, better clients, and better fees, and then also achieve that state that we like to call the architect nirvana, of being able to focus on the design, focus on being great architects, and not having to worry about where the next project is going to come from. Now, last episode we also mentioned about a great article, opinion piece, that our colleague Richard Petrie wrote about the problem that a lot of architects face, and he gave a name to it, and we're calling it the silent war. So why is it silent? It's silent because there's not a lot of people talking about it. Why is it a war? Because it's a struggle. And we gave some a little additional detail in that previous episode about exactly what that war is. But so let's talk for a second about what this war is, Eric, and then let's talk about, why is it a war, and then we'll kind of get into, there were some great comments. Actually, I think we definitely, Richard struck a chord with this particular article, and people are responding very passionately about this particular topic. So maybe we can talk a little bit about why people are so passionate about it. Why do you think that this struck a chord with the community out there?
Well, I think architects in general feel that they have to be so careful about their fees. They have to compete on price, or that they're being turned into a commodity where, what's your fee for doing drawings? Unlike a doctor or a lawyer, where you're able to, if you want to sit down with a doctor or a lawyer, you're paying a fee just to be in the room with them. Our architects are just used to driving across town to meet with a potential client. It's a totally different world, and yet architects have put in just as much time and effort and training, and are dealing with just as important issues in terms of health and safety and just buildings. People spend more time in buildings than they do with doctors, right? So what an architect does really affects the quality of life in a way that's extremely vital. So it's really painful. I mean, I see so many architects saying, "God, this is so frustrating." I mean, what do you think? I mean, you're an architect. I mean, you've gone through this.
Well, one thing that is painful from my side is that people have almost an underestimation of how much work it takes to get a project done, and so when you tell them how long it's going to take, it seems like it's taking too long. And, from the outsider's perspective, they think, man, you're using the computer, you can just cut and paste these graphics, you're just pasting details from previous jobs. I mean, even highly experienced contractors and other professionals in industries that are not residentially based, they still seem to, not fully understand what it takes to produce a set of drawings, how much it's just labor. It really is labor intensive, Eric. And so when people don't understand that, there's that mismatch, and they think that, oh, this is something really easy, but it actually takes a lot longer and it has a lot more expertise involved, then you get the expectations aren't lining up.
Yeah, and I think that one of my favorite little stories, it's sort of a sad one, is there was a hurricane somewhere, and someone asked, well, any damage to the building? He says, oh, just some of the architecture blew off, and so that exactly. Perception that architecture is, let's say the icing on the top rather than the core of what makes a building successful. That architects really, provide a service that any architect could do the same thing. And I think certainly many architects could, but there is a unique spirit to each individual creator that, it's not a commodity. It's not about just how fast can you whip out a set of drawings.
Yeah, and more it's becoming so specialized. You know, even in residential design nowadays, we have access specialists, we have people that specialize in homes for the aging in place. We have sustainable design. You know, you can build an entire career out of focusing on one of those tiny niches. But architects, we don't have any way of specializing, which is kind of odd, because if you think about, you know, it's one way that doctors get paid more, right, Eric, is that they can specialize. They can be a neurosurgeon, they can be a cardiologist, and commensurately, of course, their fees go up. And that is one thing that I know some of our respondents here talked about when they responded to Richard's article here.
Well, before you go into the respondents, you know, it is possible to specialize. If you look at Mona Quinn, who was on our last show, she chose a specialty doing remodels, but doing remodels of older buildings, which are called character homes in New Zealand. And she is the character home specialist in New Zealand. I mean, she's become, you know, a respected authority on this particular niche of remodeling, rehabbing, improving, you know, these really old, you know, ones that have a lot of character. So it is possible to specialize and, in fact, then become, you know, more appreciated. In fact, she's now sought after. She have people who are flying, or even from New Zealand to Australia, to talk about projects. And she said, I remember she was just a year ago, she would have never imagined that someone would do that, but she's established herself as the specialist.
Yeah. You know, and I think one thing that hurts us as architects, Eric, is that because we understand design and we have this perception that we could basically design anything, then we want to project that to everyone else. Well, I could do a fire station, I could also do a school, I could do a hospital. It's all the same to me. I'm going to market myself doing all of them. As a matter of fact, I was talking with a colleague a while ago talking about my expertise, which is in the healthcare industry. And he was basically saying that as an architect, he felt comfortable in any building type. And I was taking the opposite stance that, you know, as a healthcare architect, I don't think I could hop into healthcare architecture without having a couple of years of experience, you know. It's just so specialized, you know, like you mentioned. And I've seen that is key to moving up the value chain.
Right. Now, you mentioned the comments. I mean, this whole idea of a war for recognition, a war for respect, a war for just getting paid the fees that you deserve for the hard work and the expertise, the knowledge that you bring. It's amazing to see some of the comments. You want to go share some of them with us?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of glanced through them here before the show, and there were just tons of great comments. I just want to mention really quickly that we launched as we're recording this, we launched Architects Marketing about a week ago. Right, Eric?
That's right.
And in that time, we have 981 soldiers who have joined the resistance. Right, Eric?
Yeah, 981 people have signed up for information and joined our insider circle of the Architects Marketing website. We're just so delighted, because this is our mission. Our mission is to raise the bar for architects and help you with the tools and ideas and knowledge that you need to be able to raise your own circumstances up. I think we're probably all in somewhat different and varying positions, but all of us could raise our bar. And that's what we're after.
Absolutely. Here's a comment from Roderick Anderson, and I know Roderick, and I know you know him personally, Eric. And I'm just going to read what he says here. He says he focuses a lot on the residential side. He says, "I think that you are correct in the undervaluation of the profession as a whole. Many times I get to an initial meeting and a client comes with a floor plan. They took off a $9.99 magazine of 500 homes or something like that. This kind of publication should be eliminated." Since then these uninformed clients don't understand why I would charge them for one design when they could look at 500 for $9.99.
Right. Yeah. It says education is part of the equation, but some other architects are also to blame because they essentially do a quick sketch, hand it off to a draftsman, and then call it a proposal. And so you're forced often to compete against your colleagues who are just giving away their value and their expertise. And so it's an interesting challenge, which, how do you actually charge even for the initial meeting, even for the initial work. An interesting article that Richard shared on Architects Marketing shared a plan, actually one piece of paper that can actually make your first meeting profitable. In other words, instead of going to a meeting and just saying we'll talk, and I'll sell you on whether on working with me as an architect, going to a meeting with an aim to and certain deliverables. In other words, you're going to have a certain result from this meeting. Check out the article when you get a chance, because it really is a radically different idea, and yet it's so simple to implement. Some of these strategies are really simple, and yet they can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and I know that our listeners can get access to that article by going to architectsmarketing.com/toolkit. Mm-hmm. And I know that architect is part of the toolkit. It's called, they just look for the one-page action plan sheet, and then you can read more about how that works. So, Eric, maybe I thought we could just talk about for a second this concept here. If an architect feels like they're forced to compete on price, and I've been in that position not only with residential clients, but also developers, especially developers, and other people who are price shopping, even municipalities now. What are some ways that architects could get out? What is the key to beating that, when you're forced to compete on price? Do you want to talk about that for a second here?
Well, I think positioning yourself as a specialist can help. So if it is, whether it's a remodel of a certain type or sustainable design or healthcare, being a specialist will potentially put you in a better position. But beyond that, finding ways to take control of the whole process instead of just responding to the client, there are ways to set yourself up as the prize that people can go after. I think, in this discussion here, I'll just say this is some of the things that you can aspire to do. We're going to be sharing some of the strategies that will help you make that position and that branding, because that's very possible to do.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to read Robert Sawyer's comment here, because you talked about the prize. So flipping the tables and becoming the person who gets chased as opposed to the person that's chasing. So if you think about that thing where you feel like you're competing on price, you've put that client in the position of power, where they're basically saying, hey, there's a lot of architects out there. I have one over here who will do it for X. What can you do it for? You're in a position of competing. So to get out of that. So what Robert says here, he says, what needs to change, in my opinion, is the public's perceived value of architecture and its processes. For example, I thought many years ago that my homespun architectural contract with its simplified provisions would be beneficial. However, I found out 10 years later that I was doing by not alliterating all aspects of the work. He says it was devaluating his product and his services. Once I began to circulate the standard AIA contract, I found a noticeable higher regard for all that my thought process entailed. This translated to a greater respect for that process. So the point he was making here and what he said in his comment was that it has a lot to do with perceived value.
Right. And interesting that using a tool that was carefully crafted to communicate that value made it much easier to do that. So he was, instead of having to reinvent the wheel and creating something, and I'm not saying you should always do that and use standard templates, but often there's been a lot of thought put into these templates and tools, and you can leverage them and just adapt them as opposed to starting from scratch. I think that the AIA certainly, while you may have some quibbles with them, they've done their homework in terms of just laying out what does an architect do.
Yep. So when I'm reading Robert's comment, one thing that I was thinking, because there are some comparisons going on here between doctors and lawyers, and we're all kind of professionals, and there's the potential there to kind of compare across the board and maybe envy them for some things, but then vice versa, they may envy us to be able to draw cool buildings when they have to, read thick stuff in books. But a doctor walks in the room, they have symbols of authority. They have symbols that say, I'm credentialed. So, he walks in with a stethoscope. They usually have a white lab coat on. They might have their hospital attire on, or their scrubs, So those are symbols of authority. And that just came to mind when we were reading Robert's comment there about the standard AIA contract, that it was that official document, sort of this symbol of authority, this symbol of professionalism that added some perceived value. So I guess the question is then, what are other things that architects can do? And we don't need to answer it now, but just get thinking upon that, how do you add to that perceived value of you as an architect? So.
Yeah, absolutely. So very interesting comments. I mean, some of them very colorful. We even talked earlier about the construction community has ridiculed architects for being idiots without any real working knowledge of construction. And I think, there probably are some stereotypes of the architect who designs something that can't be built, or that the drawings are inconsistent, or that really could have been done better or differently. And one of the issues is that architects haven't teamed up with contractors. And I'm not talking about integrated project delivery, although that is a very powerful strategy, particularly for the larger projects. I'm talking about seeing the other members of the construction process as, say, allied team members. Because if you treat the people you work with respect, and in fact, at least be open to their input on, design, construction issues, maybe that will make the project better, and even more so. And one of the things we saw with Peter Toohey, he said that when he started to really cultivate that relationship with contractors, he's getting many referrals, people, of course, going in some cases to a contractor for information about a remodel, and the contractor saying, well, you'll need an architect for this, and this guy Peter is really a good one. We like working with him. So by actually treating them with a certain respect, you get it back. And so that's an interesting thing. So it doesn't have to be a war, between, design and construction, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing that Robert did say in his comment here. He says architects have to stop talking about contractors in a negative light. So that is a powerful strategy. Eric is leveraging contractors, because a lot of times when homeowners, for instance, want to get a house done, they go first to the contractor. So if you establish those kind of relationships, it's a great way to get work, and that works for developers. Any other client out there are going to have pretty close relationships with some of the contractors out there.
Yeah. Now, all of these things we're talking about, communicating and sort of, having a better relationship with the contractors and educating our clients. It's interesting. We haven't used the word marketing very much. And one of the things we decided we would do today is talk about marketing, but not about the sort of stereotype of marketing as selling products, marketing as getting a sale made. But instead, look at what marketing is communicating value, actually being able to contact people and reach them about who you are, what services you offer in more than just, we do design drawings and, construction management and things like that, but really positioning your value in their life, your value in their, the end result. Because if you can take control of the conversation, if you can educate your potential clients, if you can be the person that they know because you've been in touch with them, if you can be the person that they like because you've offered them good information and been generous about that. I'm not talking about driving across town to do a proposal or, do a meeting at no charge, but just you've given them good information and that they can trust you. You've established yourself in a position where they're going to want to come to you. So marketing, in a sense, is communicating something so it sets the conversation. It sets what the conversation is about.
Yeah. I think that, I don't know what others perceive about marketing, Eric. I can only speak from my own experience. And I know that a long time ago, before I was exposed to a lot of these concepts about communication and sharing value with people, I confused advertising with marketing. I can think back to when I was in elementary school here in the States, and we would study advertising. We had to create a little jingle, as part of our curriculum, just to kind of understand how advertising works, right? Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's what marketing was about. It was about coming up with a little jingle, coming up with a little slogan, kind of making up reasons why your product is better than others. But since then, I've come to understand that true marketing that works is on a much, much deeper level. And that's what I was hearing from what you were saying just now, is that it's really about you having a gift in your life that you want to share with other people, and then what is the best way to communicate that? You know, and I think Apple's an example of someone that's been able to do that excellently. You know, everyone understands what Apple's about and understands that they're unique and they're special, and they have a mission beyond just selling computers or selling little boxes that, you know, crunch numbers.
Yeah, I think we can definitely look outside of the field of architecture for inspiration. In other words, if you look at other architects and what they're doing on their websites and what they're doing with their marketing, you'll gain some benefit from that. But if you look outside the industry, you'll find there are companies and individuals who are much more savvy than architects in terms of marketing, in terms of business development, in terms of positioning and branding who they are and what they do. So that's part of our mission here, is to bring to you, architects and design community, some of the things that we've learned that really will help you go beyond what other architects do, go beyond what your peers are doing, because most actually have stayed away from it, have been too busy, have had an aversion, or just sort of not feeling comfortable with it. And yet you who are watching this show, we know that you've already made the decision that this is important. You want to learn. And what we want to bring to you is training and tools that will help you master this subject. Not become a master like this is your only focus, but master it enough that it serves your needs so that you can do what you came here for, which, let's say you came here to be an architect or a designer, you came to make the world a better place. You have a mission in terms of your creative work that I'm sure is positive, is making a big difference in the world, and we want to help you do that. So we've got, as we mentioned, tools on the website, architectsmarketing.com/toolbox, but we've also are launching this week, or coming up right now, a series of trainings. So the first one you can get access to if you go to architectsmarketing.com/training. Will be a webinar where we share a whole system, an overview of all of the pieces of the puzzle. And we'll be going into detail on about 5 or 6 of those pieces, enough that you could go and start doing it. We want to make sure you are equipped with the knowledge and the actual tools, templates, cut and paste things that'll make it easy for you to go from, well, that sounds really good, to I'm doing it, because implementation is really the key. So, Enoch, you want to talk a little bit more about where we're going with this just right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the blueprint that Eric's talking about is the exact same blueprint that we used when we walk architects through the Architect Marketing Academy, of course, which is an exclusive group of architects where we help them implement the system. So it's the same system that Mona's implemented in her business and that Peter has implemented in his business, and that's the blueprint we're going to be sharing with you on this training. Now the training, you go to, once again, architectsmarketing.com/training. That'll let you know the current training as of watching this webinar, what training program is available at this time. But another thing we want to do is we want this to be collaborative, just like the way that we read some comments today, Eric. We need your comments. So we're not doing this alone. We want your feedback. We want your thoughts. We want your questions. Go to architectsmarketing.com. Leave comments on the blog. Write in to show@architectsmarketing.com, and we will read comments on the air. We'll answer questions, but we really want this to be a dialogue, because it's got to be more than Eric and I doing this. You're listening. Become part of the conversation. That's my invitation.
Yeah, we're really excited to share this with you, and I know that we're going to be learning just as much by teaching you as you are from learning from us. It's a truism that when you teach and you pay attention to the people you're working with, we can all help each other along the journey. So it's going to be really exciting.
Agreed. Well, Eric, it's been another awesome conversation. I look forward to seeing what, the comments and the feedback we get from this episode. So over and out from my side. Talk to you next week.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Yep, bye-bye.